everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Create, and I'm here today to continue working on the Joy to the World Graphic 45 mini album that I started a few weeks ago. We're going to get started. We're going to do a couple of pages. I am going to have to stop and start today because my husband's got some activities planned, but I'm going to try to get in at least a couple of pages right now. So I'm going to go ahead and sit down and get started with that. So I want to share with you what I did here is I pieced together 2 design pages, and the way I like to do that is I butt them up against each other, tape them together with double-sided tape, and then I trim it down to size, and that way I know that my sides are perfectly aligned here and that the overall fit is just right on. And then I'm going to use a small strip, which I've already cut and inked, to sort of mask that seam, and I'm real happy with the way that looks. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this down. I'm going to measure that real quick so I can give you guys an estimate on what that is. But I think I'm looking at it, it looks like a 1/2 inch. Okay, got a little excess tape. I'm going to roll that around the edge. All right. So this has been, I already dry fit once, so I'm going to go ahead and get some glue down. This has been a real challenging project for me. I had some issues with my spine early on that I've kind of overcome, but it kind of set me back, and honestly it was hard for me to get my design flow rolling again after that. It's funny how that can kind of unnerve you. Anyways, I'm back on track, and I appreciate all the suggestions that I'm seeing in the comments about how to deal with cracked spines or how to avoid them in the first place. So I am definitely going to be looking into different papers, as well as some, I've heard about Tyvek off and on a lot, and I've never used it. At some point, I'm going to do some testing with that. Now, for my black cardstock, I'm really happy with the bookbinding tape that I found, and I use that extensively. And I don't build an album without it anymore. But black on black is a lot easier to match. Trying to match the cream or finding bookbinding tape that's the right color cream or the same color cream that you're using, a little bit more challenging. So I'm going to start looking into some of the other solutions that you guys have graciously added to the comments below. Okay, so here we go. I'm just looking from edge to edge, trying to get this on nice and even. There we go. There's our first one. And I've kind of gone back to my normal design aesthetic where the front and back inside liners are going to be the same. And part of the reason that I pieced it is I think it's just too much of one pattern. But also I was running out of larger pieces of paper after having picked out a lot of the design papers that are inside. All right, now let's get this little design strip in, and I'm just going to lay it down. I'm going to double check. Yep, it's right on. I was just looking to make sure it was the right length, and it is. All right, a little glue on here. Now you can try to center it, or you can put it on one side or the other, and I'm actually going to put it on the blue side so that I have more of the gold exposed. It's not that big of a difference, but I like a little more weight toward the top. It just makes it look a little bit more like a pocket. Okay, that's in. Yay, we've got something done. Yay, some color. Okay, so the next piece is another large mat that goes just on the inside, and I know that's a lot of one particular pattern, but we are going to put a waterfall on top of it, so don't worry, we're going to add some more color here. And I think I mentioned in the previous video, but I'll mention it again, I am using the cream, the Ivory Graphic 45 regular tags in the album, and I'm also using some of the ATC tags. And of course you can substitute that by just trimming down some paper to create a feature, similar feature, just without the tag. And I'll give you some of those dimensions to work on and explain kind of why I went with the sizes I did. when I get to them. And we will be using an ATC tag on this page. I'm just running my finger under it to see that I've got a nice even border. I've got everything clipped to my pages in here to speed up the installation process, but it makes it a little harder to install the paper because it's not quite flat. So I wouldn't recommend it for you, but when you're teaching, it helps keep things a little bit more organized. I don't like to do the shuffling on camera. Okay, so the feature that's going to go on here is four flaps, and then I didn't mention this in the initial video, but the bottom piece is going to be a fixed, so it's the measures the same size as the finished flap here. So I'm just cutting off that 1/2 inch hinge because when I get done, I want this one to just be a fixed piece. It will not flip, it'll be solid. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm going to tuck the edge of this tag, which I've scored at 1/2 inch, under this, and this is going to be what holds my waterfall in place. So that's going to become more clear in the next few minutes. But that's what I'm thinking. That's where I'm at. And I am going to turn this sideways a little bit, and I'm going to lay these out. And I'm probably going to give myself a little reference line as to where I want to start the waterfall. And then once I have kind of an estimate of where I want to start it, I'm going to come back with a pencil and draw a reference line for the first one. And then once you get your first one in, you just measure everything off of that. Okay. So again, I mentioned it in the initial customization and flaps, but these finished pieces are 4 1/8 by 6 1/8, and that's because the ephemera is 4 by 6, and I wanted a small border around it. So that's where I came up with my size. And we have one more piece that's going to go here. So there we go. So I'm just looking to center this feature, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. Okay, there's what my waterfall is going to look like. I'm trying to hold it all in place, and it looks like looks almost like 2 inches, but I'm just going to put a tick mark and we're going to measure it together. Sorry, my allergies are it was so light I could hardly see it. Actually, it is, I'm going to call that 1.5. So I'm going to mark it down at 1.5 and install our first one. I can barely see my pencil, but that's probably a good thing. Where's my other line? There it is. That looks pretty good. All right, there we go. So there is my installation line. So I'm going to go ahead and put my first one down. Actually, I think what I'm going to do before I start is go ahead and cover my mats, just because it's easier to do that while they're out of the book. So I'll cover the mats and then we'll install them. And I have my papers trimmed out. I have 4 patterns here. Yeah, 4 patterns and a cover. So the cover sheet or the cover flap is going to have a piece of ephemera that I'm going to go ahead and mount. And then each one of these is going to have an alternating pattern. Okay. And I've already pre-inked all these, so it should go pretty quickly. Okay, there's one. Okay, we're gonna do that 4 more times, and then we'll go ahead and install everything in the book. Okay. Now I have to put them in order because I know this is the top one. I'm trying to remember if I did a pattern or a solid behind this one. 2, 3, nope, 3, and 4. So that's one way to look at it. The other is to switch this so that I finish with a solid. And I think I like that better. So my bottom one is going to be the fixed one that does not have a flange or a hinge on it is going to be the solid pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that down so I don't accidentally forget and get them out of sequence. Now, of course, you can make this a hinge too if you like, especially if you're not going to use the ATC tag to hold the waterfall together. And I'm just using it, a fixed one, to mask the hinge so that there's not a hinge in the middle of my page. And what I mean by a hinge is this piece. So again, this is going to get tucked beneath this, and then all the waterfalls will lay down, just like so. So if you decide to hold your waterfall together with magnets, you can make this, you can add that 1/2 inch and have this be a flip up as well, part of the waterfall. Okay, so there we go. So that's done. Let's go ahead and do the top one next. And this drives me to distraction, but most people don't even notice. Graphic 45 does not make these perfectly 4x6. They're actually something slightly smaller than 4x6. So I'm going to have a little bit larger border on the top one than I do on the ones that layer underneath it. And I could adjust by making all of these a little bit smaller, but I did not. I like to keep them at a perfect 4x6 because it means you have very little trimming of your photos when you put them in. So as you can see, the borders are slightly different. This is probably a 1/16 and this is closer to an 1/8. So just slight difference. And again, you can resolve that by just making this mat smaller to start with. But then you don't have your, 4x6 mat. Okay, so the next one, let's go ahead and do another red one. Okay, get this in. One more, and you know what? I gotta mind your orientation. I just double checked mine to make sure I don't install it upside down. I'm trying to be extra mindful because I noticed last night when I was double checking everything, I had actually planned a piece of paper in the wrong orientation. Instead of side to side, I trimmed it to go this way, and I couldn't use that paper. I had to find an alternate. So that's always frustrating, but it happens. It's best to find it before you glue it down. Okay, that's in. So we're gonna get this waterfall in, and then I'm gonna take a break and prep our next page. Okay, so we've got our line here, and I'm gonna use my handy dandy tool to make sure the line I created doesn't drift. And it should be right at 1.5 inches at the beginning and at the end, and it is. and then these are installed with tape. Now I don't have anything on the back side because I still have a couple of things that I need to plan inside, and I will come back and cover these once I know what paper is left over. And for this one, I'm going to turn it around so I can get a closer look at the edge, and all I'm doing is centering it side to side. And I don't do it with a ruler, I just eyeball it. Okay, that's in. That's in. That looks pretty good. Pretty straight. Okay, the next ones go really easy because all you do is butt this against the one preceding it. And you know what? I'm going to have to get rid of some of this bulk because it just isn't laying flat. That helps some, but not enough. Better. Okay. Let me turn it over. Okay. And so that, the next one is the red one, then a pattern, and then the fixed one. I got that down not quite right. Part of that is because of the bow, so I'm going to try to flatten the paper, the page, and there we go. That's better. Better. Okay, now see, this is a flat one, no hinge. It's going to just get installed straight here. So we're going to butt it right up against the one above it. And then before I do that, I want to install this hinge. So when this is all closed, this is going to be the mechanism that holds all these pieces in place. So I'm going to turn the right side up again and figure out my placement. So I think I want the tag to overlap on this side so it's not covering the angel. So let's get an estimate on where that's going to be. Oops. So I think I like that. So I'm going to put a little tick mark here. So once I get my adhesive on here, I can visually locate my attach point, which looks like it's about right there. So I'm going to put a little bit of tape on here and get it on, and then glue this whole thing down. Okay, there we go. Looking for my little tick mark. There it is. I'm going to slightly cover it. And that's done. So this is all going to get installed like so. So I'm going to get some glue on the back of this and lay it down. Okay, so that's that. So now I have to figure out how am I going to keep this flap down, and for this I had gone back and forth about whether or not to do a bow, but I think there's too much going on from a pattern perspective. So rather than having a bow come across the design, which is one way you could do it, run a ribbon through the eyelet and then have another ribbon on the other side. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put a magnet on the other side of this flap here, and the magnet is actually going to be drawn to this grommet, so I don't even need a magnet on the tag side. So I'm going to place the magnet on this side. I need to get some tape on it, and it'll get covered up with the mat I put on the back side. And I'm using my fat tape because it covers the whole magnet and softens the edges. Okay, so I'm going to lay this down gently and try to locate my magnet. Now the other way to do this, which would have been a little bit easier, is to put it on the top side because you're not having to go through layers of paper. Because this is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So I think the way I'll do it is I'll kind of measure it. Yeah, that's what I'll do. All right, so it looks like it needs to come up about there. So let me double check that one more time. And actually use my ruler, the real one. So 1 inch. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring from the bottom of this flap to the top of the tag, and it is 1 inch. So I know I need to come down from the top roughly 1 inch, which is right here. And because the grommet is magnetized, I think it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's relatively close, it'll attract. Oops, I'm too high. I'm too high, or too low. There it is. That's it. Okay, so now in addition to that, and actually it's not quite as strong as I was hoping. In addition to this, I'm going to put a decorative piece of ribbon here. So there's a small chance I might replace this with a stronger magnet because I don't want to put a magnet on the tag itself. But for now, if you don't put any ribbon in here, which is going to hold it off the paper a little bit, it's plenty strong enough. So I think I might put, like I said, a stronger magnet here. We'll see. When I get, I'm going to try moving it one more time and see if that doesn't solve my problem. No, it doesn't. So I think I'm going to go with a stronger magnet here. And then for those of you watching, I would actually recommend installing the magnet under this top page so you don't have to fuss with it like I'm doing, which is easy enough to do. Okay, so that's it for now. I'm going to get my papers together for the next page and I'll be back shortly.